Welcome, all black founders. I took another stroll from where I'm staying at in Times Square down to Union Square, and the reason why I did it is because I believe in manifestation. I believe you can manifest what you want and where you're going to be. I really believe that. I've manifested some great things in my life so far, some amazing things that are much harder than convincing a VC to invest in me. It reminds me of a story. There was a slave, I believe he was in Louisiana, and he would act very regal. He had an air about him, and he had a spirit and a light within him that wasn't diminished, even in his captivity. So the slave master started calling him Prince. The Prince, here comes the Prince. Here comes the Prince. So he would go about, and he was known as the Prince. Well, because of his status and his regalness and how he carried himself, he was gaining favor, within plantation life. And he started working in the house of his slave master. And so one day, he's in the slave master's study, and he sees a Quran, an Arabic writing, and he starts reading it. And this slave master was like, wow, do you know how to read Arabic? And he's like, yes, So he asked him, can you write Arabic? And he's like, yes. So he asked him to translate the Lord's Prayer, our Father who art in heaven. So he translated and he wrote it in Arabic, but what he did was he actually wrote the Al-Fatiha, which is the equivalent prayer in the Islamic faith, which was kind of a form of resistance, right? Now the interesting thing about this guy is he actually was a prince. He was born into African royalty, and he was captured by his enemies, and he was sold into slavery. So he was a prince. Now, time goes on, and his slave master is starting to think, or rather his enslaver, because I don't really believe the slaves were ever mastered. You cannot master a human being. So his enslaver started to advocate for him, and somehow someone wrote to the king of Morocco and said, hey, we have a guy here who says he's a prince and says he's royalty. And the Moroccan government said, yeah, that's our guy, send him home. Now, he wasn't from Morocco, but interestingly enough, this is what they did. They said, yeah, he's our guy. They accepted him. He ends up going to Morocco, and they freed his son, his wives, I believe his sons and daughters' wives and husbands and children, and they brought them all over there. And I believe they ended up settling in Liberia, which was a failed attempt to reintegrate and formerly enslaved people back into Africa, which turned out to be a disaster because those freed people ended up treating the native Africans like garbage. So anyway, that's a whole nother story for another day. But I say that to talk about, manifesting. I believe that if you truly believe, you can manifest what you want. Christ said if you have the faith of a mustard seed, you can move mountains. And that's a parable. So it's keep the faith. Do you really truly believe in what you're doing? Do you really truly believe this is your calling? Are you chasing a dream and a goal that'll make a difference, or are you chasing money and a lifestyle? You know, what is your true intentions of what you're doing and why you're doing? You know, as Black founders and entrepreneurs, we have the duty to keep it clean, because the eyes are on us. And just as now there's a push forward in our favor, there will be a push back. All right. I've seen this in my lifetime as a young kid, when there was still school busing, when they would bus kids from what would be considered the bad part of town. They would bus them into my neighborhood. And, but then, they stopped busing because eventually all the white kids in my neighborhood left. White flight. That was a missed opportunity, just in our neighborhood. And interestingly enough, my neighborhood still, when I roll through my old neighborhood that I grew up in as a child, still property values are still high, streets are still well kept, lawns are still manicured. So what were they running from? All right. They were running from a thought and a fear. The same thoughts and fears, that hold us back, of some type of impending doom or some type of impending culture clash. Somehow our presence is harmful to their existence, which is not true. So, as we manifest our success and we give opportunities to others throughout our community, and we work with others through the broad, vast spectrum of different communities, being a bottom caste, we should never find ourselves in the position where we are the ones who are oppressing others or holding back others or holding biases against others.